It is Wednesday, the 13th of September, 2023. Now, this is 1 year later since President William Ruto, his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, took an oath of office as the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. Now, of course, today we are having this 1 year anniversary, and that is what we'll be focusing on. Good morning, karibu sana. This is your weekly favorite political and leadership program, the Mid-Morning Pack, right here on MBCI TV. My name is Mangicho Mola. On the other side is my co-host, Bwana Paul Kagi. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Happy Kenya Kwanza government 1 year anniversary. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm also good.
How has been your week?
My week has been fine. With a lot of things happening in Nakuru and also even across the country.
And rains is back. And farmers are back in their chambers.
Yes.
We thank God for everything. Good morning and welcome to the Mid-Morning Pack. The 13th day of September 2023. Welcome to this program which gives you a heavy analysis of what is happening in our country. My name is Paul Kagi. Welcome about.
Exactly. And of course, our dear viewer, just as we have already highlighted for you, is that today our main topic or main area of discussion will be, and we would also like you to participate in this particular conversation that we are going to have here. The topic is President William Ruto's 1 year scorecard. President William Ruto's 1 year scorecard. What do you make of his governance? What do you make of his leadership? What do you make of his performance in the last 1 year? And therefore, that is a question that we are also asking you. How would you rate government's performance in the last 1 year? How do you rate the government's performance in the last 1 year? Are you satisfied? There are things that maybe you would have wanted to be factored in or to be implemented in the last 1 year but have not yet been implemented. Are there things that you are pleased with? Are there things that you can actually look back and say, indeed, this particular government has done this and that. This particular government has achieved this, it has accomplished this, and therefore it needs thumbs up, or it needs to be commended for what maybe it has done in the last 1 year. Interact with us. You know the drill. You can begin to join us in our shortcut platform, that is 23814, 23814. Catch us live on our social media pages. On Facebook, we have MBCI TV, and also on YouTube, we have MBCI TV Official. We'll be glad to also see what is it, because this is a topic and this is an area that is affecting you directly, because you are the voter. You're the one who went to the poll last year on August. And of course, you went to the poll so that you can bring in a leadership that will look into your needs, a leadership that will fulfill the promises that it made to you, a leadership that will take care of the issues that you want to be addressed, be it in your locality, be it in your town, be it in your career, be it in your business, and so on and so forth. So you are the one to give us your assessment to also see what is it that you think of their performance so far. Therefore, and then, of course, a little bit later on, we shall also be joined by a guest who is also well endowed with knowledge and also current affairs. He's a political analyst and also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Wakili Kipkoech Ngetich. He will be here a little bit later on to help us also to look into this particular area. And of course, we promise you quite a candid and a robust conversation on today's topic. But meanwhile, Kagi, quite a number of other things that have been making headlines across this week.
Yeah, of course, we have many issues that we are going to look at this morning, dear viewer, regarding to political, maybe development and other areas for the last few days. And one of the things that has come up for the last 3 days is whereby the Kenya Kwanza government, particularly the UDA, is really working out around the clock to ensure that we have what we call a single party. Yes, you know, a super party. And they are sourcing the members to be able to agree, those who are having some small parties, to be able to agree to fold their parties and form a formidable party ahead of 2027. And this matter is not the first time it is appearing. It has been there. We know that Malala, who is the chair of UDA, Secretary General of UDA, has been very instrumental in pushing for the folding of other small parties which are affiliated to the UDA and come up with a super party. This one, I think, if you could have followed the history of President himself, he has been for a very big party, which he is calling a national party. Okay. And I think his agenda is that he has a vision of having like two big political parties in Kenya, which will be competing during elections. And one time I heard him saying that there's no need of having many parties which are not effective. And I think he's borrowing the leaf from US, whereby they have two major parties for many years, the Democrat and the Republican, which really compete during elections. And that is where he is going, is heading to. We can have two political parties. And for now, I think we have two major parties. If you go to individual parties, we have the UDA as per today, and ODM is also a very big party, and the third one is the Wiper Party. And therefore, we are waiting to hear, especially from two other parties like ANC and Ford Kenya. ANC, which is led by the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, and also Ford Kenya, which his patron is a Speaker of National Assembly, Mr. Wetangula. So there's a lot to wait, and I think it's going to be a very aggressive program to fold these parties, Mangicho.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, Kagi, because I think this is an issue that is quite interesting, and we want to find and to maybe ask ourselves some questions, even as we also get into the details of this particular debate, because, yes, Kagi, I remember it is not the first time that maybe we are having a claim for folding maybe of these small parties, maybe for the government, or also maybe for the country, maybe to have two major parties that have what we call a national outlook. But unfortunately, maybe our scenario is quite different, maybe from a scenario like we can maybe have in a country like the United States of America, because in number one, actually, there are those, I was listening to Professor P.L.O. Lumumba saying that in Kenya we don't have political parties. What we have is ethnic outfits. Okay? He uses the term ethnic outfits to mean that when it comes to Kenya, what our leaders normally do, actually, we don't use the term leader in this particular case, we use the word politicians. What they normally do is that they look for these outfits so that they can use them as vehicles or vessels to be able to take them to leadership, or to be able to take them to the realms of power. And I think that is the crisis that we find ourselves in, so that you find in a place like maybe Nyanza, of course, there are those who would argue that maybe ODM has a national outlook, but we know that it is mainly, or its deep roots is actually in the Nyanza region. If you are to look at a party like ANC, of course, you'll trace its roots to Western. The same case applies for Ford Kenya, and of course, other parties like Wiper. You'll find that it is deeply rooted in the Eastern region, and that is, I think, the lower Eastern. So I think for us is a situation whereby we want to, if something like this was to be achieved, or if something like this were actually to bear some fruits, Kagi, you'd agree with me that we really need leaders who don't necessarily look after themselves, or who do not necessarily look after their own interests. And then Kenyans should also be educated. Kenyans should also be enlightened, that you don't necessarily have maybe to look at a leader because of maybe where he comes, or maybe because of his ethnic affiliation, but look at the potential of this particular person. Right,
and if, as you're saying, if we could be able to have these parties, and we come from our ethnic cocoons, and produce national parties whereby anybody can stand with this party and be elected from every corner of the country, we would say that we have taken good strides in terms of advancing our political parties.
Sure.
But I think the two guys, our two political heavyweights, that is the president himself, Dr. William Ruto, and also the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga, in terms of political parties, I see as if they are reading from a different script. How? The president is for having one outfit. We have one party, for his own political ambition. When it comes to Raila, he has not been advocating for folding of parties. If you look at him for some years back, he is not for folding political parties. he has been advocating for formation of coalitions to be able to accommodate more parties. You see?
Yes.
So they are reading from different scripts.
Sure.
I don't know. Anyway, it depends with your school of politics.
Exactly.
But I think it is a tall order when it comes to fold these parties, though it is not the first time. You remember the times of Jubilee Party?
Yeah, yeah.
The second term?
I remember actually we had the folding again of parties.
Yes.
I also remember we had we had the TNA.
Yeah.
And also had the URP, which were merged so that we could now have Jubilee. But now look at Jubilee today. It's a shell of its former self.
I tell you.
So, and this is a party that I was highly invested in, and so many Kenyans thought, and so many Kenyans of the opinion that this is a party that would have taken this particular country for a very long time, even in terms of maybe the structures and even maybe in terms of the manifesto and so on and so forth. So for now, I think that is something like you had just rightly put it. It's something that we are going to wait and see how far is it that we can be able to succeed. But I can bet that some of these political leaders or politicians who are actually the owners of this party, I think they would be very, very hesitant to fold their parties, because at the end of the day, they also take it as their bargaining point. Okay, like if you can remember actually what Mudavadi went with when he was now campaigning and also getting into the deal that he had with the president. That is what he went with, that this is what I'm bringing. This is what I can be able to command. So some of these politicians establish this particular party so that they can have what we call bargaining power in relation to maybe what they want to become, or some of the positions that they will be able, or they can be in a position to hold in government.
Yes, correct. As we wind up, it's good to agree that for the last decades we have been moving forward in terms of empowering our politics. But we are not yet there. We have a long way to go. I think we need to advance our politics because we have the Political Parties Act, which is not fully established, fully implemented. And as we conclude this matter, Mangicho, you know there's an issue of the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, which stopped the expelling of the ODM rebel members of parliament yesterday. And there are quite a number of members of parliament who decided to be able to be working with the government, which is not healthy on the side of the opposition, especially for the ODM, who held their NEC meeting led by their leader Odinga, and they had a resolution to be able to expel quite a number of members of parliament who went to be able to maybe to stop the expulsion from the party. And yesterday the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal okayed that they should not be expelled, they should not be struck from the political, from the register. And one question I was asking myself, it is not the first time, Mangicho, you could recall, whereby members of parliament have been courting the government or maybe opposition, and the government of the day or the other parties are not comfortable. You remember even President Kenyatta himself, during his reign, he tried to work out ways to expel members of his party, especially the nominated members of parliament who are working with then Deputy President Dr. Ruto. It didn't materialize. And this time around, the route it took last time is a similar route it is even taking this time around. I think we, in a nutshell, we need to work out ways to be able to establish our political parties to avoid the push and pull of our bylaws or laws regarding to political parties, that you know when you are elected within a party, where is your boundary, which is the draw line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Kagi. That again is a very, very important conversation. Because you see, when we have these instabilities, they also maybe affect even some of the progress that maybe we want to see. And it actually caught my attention, because some of the questions that most people have actually been asking, and even some of the political or some of the politicians and also those who are political analysts, some of the questions that they've been asking is, if you're a member maybe of a party that is not in government, okay? What is the reference as far as your relationship with the government is concerned? Because some of these ODM members of parliament that the party expelled them, or the party ruled to expel them, but of course the tribunal has it has actually overturned that particular decision. The argument is, it is not that necessarily they have decamped from ODM.
Yes.
It is not that they have changed their loyalty. The argument is that they are just cooperating with the government. Okay?
Right.
So they are wondering, why is it that the party is so harsh to them, yet this is a scenario whereby when we have a president that is elected to be able to serve the entire country. So let's say, for example, President Ruto goes maybe to a constituency that is being represented by a member of ODM, so that maybe he can go there and maybe be in a position to initiate development programs. What would be the harm? What crime would a member of ODM maybe commit just to be seen maybe to welcome the president and maybe to also be in a position maybe to highlight some of the development programs that he wants in that particular constituency?
Yeah.
But now those who are opposed to this school of thought, they are of the argument that whether you as a member of parliament, you are seen to work or maybe even to share maybe a particular event or to share maybe a particular platform with the president or not, that is neither here nor there. That once the government is put in place, once the government has been given the mandate to be able to rule, it therefore has everything that it needs and it requires to serve the people, both who elected the government and those who did not maybe elect them.
Very well. We have another matter here, the bipartisan talks. There has been a development, I think, by yesterday. It is reported in the papers, whereby it is being said a leader of the opposition, Raila Odinga, is expected to make a major announcement on the bipartisan dialogue tomorrow. Yesterday, he was holding a crisis meeting with the top brass of the coalition because of what they're saying. Things are not moving right at the bipartisan talks, which is involving the National Dialogue Committee. And one of their complaints is that the other side of the talks, they are not coming on time during the meetings, or maybe they are trying to slow down in terms of making decisions. Others are alleging that they must wait for a guidance before they make any decision. They cannot make any decision solely without major consultations. It is reported that tomorrow, Odinga is expected to make a major announcement regarding to the talks, which they are saying that they are not very comfortable with. And one of the major things that we have heard from the public meetings from our top leaders is that, yes, the president himself has said that he is very ready to be able to facilitate the formation of the office of the leader of opposition in Kenya to help them to be able to do their job as per the constitution. On the other side, we have heard the DP himself saying that these talks are not very promising. We know that he has also proposed, they dropped the proposal to be able to counter-check the election results data. Yes. And therefore, there are many things that are coming out there. We are hoping that tomorrow, the announcement by Odinga is not going to affect the talks, but it's going to strengthen what they are doing to be able to bring into stability our perennial political squabbles.
Again, that is a very, very major area of concern because well, there is an utterance, or there is a statement that the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, made that I think has also elicited mixed feelings and mixed reactions across the country. Because what we already know is that the National Dialogue Committee has already embarked on these particular talks.
Yes.
And these are talks that have also, they've already been taken to Parliament, entrenched in Parliament. But there is something that is said that there is a particular issue that needs to be removed from these particular talks, something that he said he was not comfortable with, and this is the audit of the 2022 general election, the presidential results. The Deputy President is on record. Actually, he made the utterances in front of the President, in front of his boss, that if anything, this particular issue should not be on the table. And mark you, already the two sides, that is the Kenya Kwanza side and also the Azimio side, they've already reached a consensus. They've already reached an agreement that these are the issues that we want to discuss. These are the issues that we want to get into so that we can be able to find a solution to the same. And one of those particular issues is now the audit of those particular, or of that particular election. So a statement like that from the Deputy President, I don't know how is it really going to affect, because maybe there are now those who maybe feel that maybe the side of the government is not necessarily very serious in terms of actually ensuring that these particular talks have success. So whether it is his own opinion or it is actually the opinion of that particular side of government is something that needs actually to be interrogated. But Kagi, if there is one thing, because even in you remember the other team that we had before this team of Kimani Ichung'wah and Kalonzo Musyoka, we had the other team, but those particular talks failed. I think one of the major things that is a threat to these particular talks is basically political goodwill.
Yes, I tell you.
Yes.
And one of the things that I foresee as a handle for these talks is the issue of the technical committee, which is receiving a lot of submissions from the public, or they are calling the memorandum. And by yesterday, they admitted they have received 142 memorandum submissions from the public. Mm-hmm. And I was asking myself, if these memorandums are so many, and because they must go through them one by another, I feel that they are going to add in the list or some of the proposals they want to discuss and have an agreement with. If these proposals are extreme, mm-hmm. or maybe one side may decide to use these memorandums to be able to jeopardize the other side, I think it will be too unfortunate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they have 60 days to be able to complete this work. That was the agreement. After 60 days, they will have completed the talks, come up with the agreement, the proposals of the legal proposals. I think 60 days will be a challenge, mm-hmm. remembering that last week they had to go for a break mm-hmm. to be able to give the African Climate Summit an opportunity to be able to go on to attend the meeting.
Right.
But let's wait. We want to know the submissions which have been made, if they're of any public interest.
Of course, I agree with you, and of course, maybe the other thing that even as they continue to receive those memorandum, Kagi, one of the things that Kenyans have also been agitating for is that the issues that should actually be in those talks, because there is one fear that has come out very strongly that maybe these two particular sides, they are just having these particular talks for their own selfish interest, or maybe for the interests of their bosses. Okay? Yes. And that is something that maybe most Kenyans are feeling very disappointed in, if by any case that would actually be the scenario, because we don't want a scenario whereby these talks are through, these talks are complete, and what we are seeing next is maybe a particular leader is given a position that even maybe Kenyans don't know how that particular position will benefit them eventually, or maybe there is just a situation. So what Kenyans are most interested in is that at the end of these particular talks, therefore, how would it translate to the average Kenyan benefiting? How would it translate to the average Kenyan seeing that as a result of these particular talks, my life has become better? Maybe there is an opportunity for me to improve in my business setup. There is an opportunity for me maybe to also improve, or maybe also to get an opportunity to invest, an opportunity maybe to get unemployment, and so on and so forth. So I think even as we continue with the talks, one of the things that we really need to be sure about is that it is in the interests of Kenyans. Whatever it is that they're going to discuss, whatever it is that they're going to lay on the table, let it be something that Kenyans will actually say, yes, we are proud of this particular talks, we are proud of this particular team, we are proud of this particular committee. They are addressing the issues that we really believe they are affecting us.
Right, and finally, Mangicho, there is an issue which was yesterday decided by the Supreme Court, whereby the Homa Bay Town MP, Peter Kaluma, had gone to Supreme Court to be able to secure that the LGBTQ association be banned and they be denied any assembly in the country. But yesterday, Supreme Court declined to be able to review the ruling which was done before, and therefore they have allowed these guys to be able to continue with their association. Mm-hmm. You know, this matter could not be able to be addressed because it was in court proceedings. But now I think is an issue which is going to maybe attract a lot of reactions, especially from the Christian faith. But my question also still remains that we have not had many people coming out to be able to talk about this matter, which I think is very sensitive in our country and even in Africa at large, and you know in Uganda how this matter has been handled by the government itself. And therefore, yesterday Supreme Court allowed these guys to be able to assemble, and in short, I could feel they have now a chance to be able to form their own umbrella, to be able to fight for their own rights. But I feel the churches should not just keep quiet, even though they have been allowed to be able to continue. The church should come out and be able to speak their mind on this matter.
Exactly. I believe a very large percent, Kagi, of the country will not feel very comfortable with that kind of ruling. I think as a country, and this is something even most of our leaders are on record as saying that we don't necessarily entertain, we don't really entertain matters to do with LGBTQ. And there are those also who feel, Kagi, that maybe there is one, in a way or the other, this particular matter maybe is having some push from the Western countries or from the European countries, for a reason maybe that they know very well. And I think maybe this is a case whereby sometimes I've heard, Kagi, some leaders saying that sometimes the courts, even as they make their rulings, they need also maybe to read the mood of the country, to look maybe at the context, okay? Not necessarily matters to do with the fact, or not necessarily to do with the factual issues, but also maybe to look at what are the other interests, okay? What are the other interests that maybe really needs to be looked into or maybe needs to be factored into. I think that is something that they really need to be alert about. That is something that they really need to be awake about, so that they don't just make a judgment, they don't just make a ruling only maybe to excite a few at the expense of maybe a larger population. Because at the end of the day, I think and I believe as a country, as a society, as communities, we know some of the values that we've been having, and this maybe are some of the values that we've been having for quite a long time. I don't really think these are values that we in any particular way want to do away with, or we want maybe to end maybe for purposes that may not be of major significance to us as a country.
Yes, and finally, one major issue regarding to this matter is that sometimes the Western countries try to use this issue to be able to sabotage the operations of African countries. For example, in Uganda, they have lost a huge amount of resources in terms of donors because of refusing to be able to give a good environment for the operations of the LGBT. And therefore, I think some countries are fearing the amount of money they will be able to lose if they decline to be able to support the expansion of the LGBTQ.
Exactly, and I can see it is 11 on the dot. I think we can take a short break at this particular point. But remember, as we have promised today, our topic is 1 year later, or actually we're trying to analyze, we're trying to examine, we're trying to assess what are some of, or what is actually the scorecard of President William Ruto's 1 year in office. What is the scorecard of President William Ruto's 1 year in office? And this is the actual, or this is actually 1 year, because today is 13th. The president and his deputy were actually, or they actually took the oath of office on a date like this, that is last year, year 2022. So for this particular 1 year, what is it that maybe they have done? And that is the question that we are asking you. It's already on your screen. How would you rate the government's performance 1 year later? Continue giving us your reflections, your feedback, your opinions on our social media platforms, MBCI TV, and for Facebook, and MBCI TV official for YouTube. For those who are interested in the shortcut platform, that is 23814. After this particular short break, we'll be able also to see what are some of your feelings on the same. We can take that particular short break right away.
MBCI Television, transforming lives. September. In Nakuru City, tears of joy will replace tears of pain. Healing, miracles, deliverance, signs and wonders. Come and witness the transformative power of God. Evangelist Doug Hayward Mills, in conjunction with Nakuru Clergy, Pastors Fellowships and all gospel ministers, invites you to Healing Jesus campaign at Afraha Stadium, Nakuru, starting from 12th to 14th September 2023, daily from 3 p.m. It's a time of restoration, exploring faith, finding hope, and embracing a deeper connection with our God. Believe, receive, and be healed physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The 3 days life-changing meetings are interdenominational, free, and open to all.
Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo katika uchumi wa kitaifa. Akili Shambani inakufunza mbinu mbalimbali za kilimo cha mimea na ufugaji. Tunavuka milima na mabonde kukuelimisha mengi kuhusu ubunifu na teknolojia katika kilimo. Yote 9, 10 ni masoko, nayo je?
Tunahusika na mkulima kutoka kwa shamba hadi sokoni.
Fahamu haya na mengine mengi kuhusu kilimo kwenye Akili Shambani kila Jumatano saa 1:30 usiku, ukiletewa nami Enaeli Mlinga.
Je, una mjengo, welding ama wewe ni fundi? Unapojenga, tumia chuma za nguvu kutoka kwa Shirdi Trading Stores Nakuru. Chuma zetu zina nguvu, ni durable na ni za bei nafuu. Tuna chuma kama vile deformed bars, round bars, hollow sections, MS plates, checkered plates and many more. Pia tuna cement, roofing sheets with special lengths, barbed wire, marine boards, tanki za viwango tofauti. Visit us kwenye distribution yetu iliyo Nakuru Industrial Area opposite Kenya Power Depot, ama kwa branch yetu iliyo Nakuru Eldoret Highway, Shabab Roundabout opposite Total Petrol Station. Tunafanya delivery within Nakuru County. Kwa habari zaidi tupigie kupitia 0701 600 101 ama 0711 600 101 na pia 0735 600 101. Shirdi Trading Stores Nakuru, the hardware that delivers.
This September in Nairobi City, the anointed man of God, Dr. Rodney Howard-Browne, will minister for the first time in Kenya in a power-packed event dubbed Holy Ghost and Fire Encounter at Nyayo National Stadium from the 12th to the 13th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. Also ministering, Pastor Robert Kayanja, Archbishop Harrison Kenganga, Apostle Julius Subi, Pastor Wilfred Lai, Pastor Tony Mwangi, and Reverend Julian Kula. Join us for a life-transforming experience at the Miracle Signs and Wonders meeting. This meeting is free and open to all.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Mid-Morning Pack right here on MBCI TV. We are glad that you're still having time to be with us on this beautiful Wednesday, the 13th of September 2023. Exactly 1 year since the Kenya Kwanza government took an oath of office. And since it is their first anniversary, we also want to find out from this particular point how is it that they have been performing? How is it that they've actually, or what is it that they've actually been in a position maybe to accomplish during this particular one term in office? We are still expecting our guest for today, that is Wakili Kipkoech Ngetich. When he comes, of course, he will be able to join us in this particular conversation so that we can also get an opportunity to find out from him what he thinks has been the hits and the misses of this particular government 1 year down the line. But remember, we are also expecting some of your feedback and some of your opinions, some of your contribution on our discussion today. And the question that we've put out for you, it's already on the screen there. You can be able to check it out. How do you rate the government's performance 1 year later? How would you rate the government's performance 1 year later? You can continue giving us your feedback on the same or your opinion on the same for our Facebook on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and of course also on YouTube. You can also catch us live on our YouTube page, that is MBCI TV official, and on our shortcut platform, that is 23814, 23814. And of course, Kagi, even as we wait for our guests to come, I think this is a major issue because, and I don't know, Kagi, from your own perspective, what do you think? Because there are those who think that maybe, and we've had that particular conversation, that 1 year is a short period, maybe to assess, or maybe to fruitfully, or maybe to successfully analyze or actually be in a position to assess the performance of a government. But there are those who think that maybe 1 year is quite enough to be able maybe to consider the shape that maybe a particular government would take.
Yes, right. And I think what has been worked upon is for the last 1 year. You know, by today we are remembering 1 year since President Ruto was sworn in as the head of state of Kenya. And what is being checked by Kenyans is what himself and the entire government promised Kenyans for 1 year. Sure. And therefore, you know, even when you're in school,
the 100 days.
And in fact, they were categorized. By yesterday night, I was seeing some areas. They were categorizing in terms of the pre-election campaigns and the 100 days promises, and then there is 1 year.
Then there is 1 year. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Therefore, there are various categories depending on what the president promised Kenyans is what we are working with.
Yeah, and Kagi, on that, before you continue with your line of thought, because there's also been that particular issue of when the government was making the promises, it was not aware, it didn't have the solid information of maybe how things on the ground were.
Yeah, true.
And therefore, they would maybe want to make some excuses that, yes, we made this particular promise, but maybe what we thought then is not what we found out when we actually took office.
Yeah, there are many surprises that I think they came across. Number one, the issue of cost of living was a major handle to the government, because you remember, even before the election, the president and the deputy president were really promising Kenyans that when we get to position, we are going to make sure that the cost of living is going to go down fortnight, not even fortnight, over the night. And it was not possible. They waited for 3 months, for 6 months, 100 days. Now it's 1 year. The problem still persists. And I think what is really matters here is how Kenyans are taking the government for the last 1 year.
Right.
Because this is not a time when public were ignorant on everything. It's a time when public is really following each and every thing said by the government, even the CSs. you know, we are living in an era of social media, Mangicho, whereby if the president speaks something in the morning, in the next 10 minutes, the public is informed of what he said or what he promised. So I think where the problem is, or where the issue is the president himself promised Kenyans several issues, and therefore they are waiting for it. It's like a child. Yeah. You promise a child, when you get these marks in your examination, I'm going to buy you something. And you specify.
Right.
And then after the child has performed extremely better, you know, you try giving them some excuses. It's the same scenario.
Exactly.
The president really told us that when you elect me, I'm going to do this and this and that. Right?
And that is very informative, Kagi, because it also makes me also to look at this particular scenario whereby these promises are very, very important, because at the end of the day, 1 year, because it's just the other day, Kagi, when you were in the election. You can actually even recall.
It sounds like a month ago.
Like a month ago, the images even of the swearing in, even when there was that goofing by the deputy president when he was actually taking his oath, they are very, very vivid memories. And imagine it's already 1 year that has already elapsed. What we are saying is that there is a very, very deep need of the government to ensure that it puts into, it actually puts into practice what is it that it promised its citizens, or it's actually its voters, because at the end of the day, we are going to realize that we are in 2027, and when you are almost, or when you are just maybe wondering what is it that maybe we've done, we'll actually be caught with the time. And also considering that our country in relation, or considering the nature of our politics, we don't have a lot of time that we spend without campaigning. So 1 year, and you can actually even look at how this particular 1 year has actually been treated. We've seen quite a lot of campaigns. We've seen quite heightened political activities. The mandamanos that have also come with a lot of have actually wreaked a lot of havoc. And so it also basically means that when we come to 2025, again, we are also going to see the campaign temperatures will again actually be in a position to go up again. So it means that any government that is actually in place, it needs to be very, very adamant. It needs to be very keen if it's actually going to realize some of the promises that it has made to its people.
And yesterday, there is a poll agency called InfoTrack, which gave its own finding after collecting some facts from the public regarding to 1 year of the Ruto's government. And the half of Kenyans, that is 53%, they were saying that the country is heading in the wrong direction, and the rest are saying that we are on the right track. And another thing that was appearing in the polls was to be able to gauge the cabinet secretaries, and some of them, half of them, rated D on performance. And I don't know what criteria members of public were using to be able to rate these guys. And those who are best performing were Interior CS, Professor Kithure Kindiki, Eden Duale of Defense, Kipchumba Murkomen of Transport, and Ezekiel Machogu of Education. And when I was trying to analyze what is being printed by the InfoTrack, I was questioning what criteria did Kenyans use to be able to rate these guys? And I was giving myself an answer. I don't know if it is valid, Mangicho. And the answer is, if you look at these faces, the Kindiki, the Duale, the Murkomen, and the Machogu are the guys who appear in our screens now and then. I don't know whether they are CSs who are performing very well, but they are not appearing in the screens. But I think that could be, you know, I don't know, if they are visible to Kenyans, it can also contribute to their rating. And that's why the president and his deputy were very angry when they could see their CSs are not going to media houses. When they are invited, they are turning down those invitations to go and explain the policies implemented by the government. And that is the only way for public to be able to know exactly what the government is doing. But if you look at the 4 faces among, I think, 21, they are the ones who are appearing in the screens, but where are the rest of our CSs? Some of them, Kenyans don't even know them a year later. It's too unfortunate. You see?
It's quite an interesting area. But as you've put it, I think I want to agree with you that maybe one of the reasons why some of these CSs have actually been they've actually maybe been rated poorly is because of their lack of conspicuousness, or they've not been conspicuous in terms of actually being seen in terms of what is it that they're actually doing, or they've not been in a position, they've not maybe done a lot to be able to bring out to Kenyans there. They've not actually interacted with the media there to be able to tell Kenyans what is it that we are actually doing. Because Kagi, it is one thing to do something, but it's another thing also to maybe tell the world outside there that we are doing something, we are doing this, we are doing that. And I agree The CS for national security, internal security, has been very vocal. I think almost even in our radio news, you'll agree, or you'll ask Vincent Kimtai, he'll tell you maybe he can never miss like 3 bulletins consecutively, where the name of Professor Kithure Kindiki actually misses. So I think it's very important. Of course, we're not just saying that they should just come out to the media just for the sake of it. No, you cannot just come out to the media and just don't have anything meaningful to actually tell Kenyans that you're doing. But then, if you have something that is meaningful, let Kenyans know. There is no any harm in having Kenyans know. But then I'm also asking, could it be possible that there are those maybe who have done something solid, they have done something tangible, they've done something that can actually translate to Kenyans benefiting, but they have been rated poorly only because maybe they've not been in a position to make Kenyans be in a position to be able to know. But Kagi, if you look at Waziri or CS like Kindiki, look at the issue of security.
Yes.
Even the cattle rustling, the banditry that we've actually been witnessing in the North Rift. You'll agree with me that right now there is calmness in the entire larger Rift Valley and also in the parts of North Rift. That is credit to him. I think there are some strategies that he used that maybe have actually been in a position to bear some fruits. How long this is going to last, maybe that is another question that we're going to ask ourselves some other day. But as at the moment, I think there is something that we can actually be in a position to agree that he has done. Look at something that he has actually been doing at Nyayo House related to the issue of passports. And this is something that has affected so many Kenyans. I was hearing in the news information that almost over 40,000 passports just have not yet been in a position to be processed and to be collected. And you can be able to see how this can actually affect so many Kenyans who want maybe to carry out their businesses overseas and also maybe to go and further their studies, education, and so on and so forth. But he has been there. He has actually said that those maybe who have been engaging in corruption, malpractices and so on and so forth, they are going actually, or they're going to face the full force of the law. So I think I agree that if you were to look at him individually, he has performed.
Yes, and even if you look at the guys like the Ezekiel Machogu, who is a CS for education, even though he is appearing, in fact, he doesn't go to many media houses, Mangicho, but you can see him in many forums, maybe in education institutions, and so forth. He has been very instrumental in trying to reduce the noise regarding to the CBC. And you can remember how Kenyans were so mad with the CBC, but he has managed to quell that noise. And today, Kenyans have embraced the new system of the CBC, and also he is working hard to ensure that the TVET institutions are stable. And also Kenyans who are coming from poor background can be able to get enough money to be able to educate them in universities. And therefore, even Mashogu, he has done a good job. Yeah, he has really tried to be able to stabilize the education sector. And we know the issue of the national examinations. He has maintained the tempo that was set by the late CS for education. And therefore, he is not there for formality. He has done a good job. Yeah, Murkomen?
Yeah, Murkomen, also the CS for, that is transport and also roads. And I think we've also seen him. We've also seen him come out very strongly in terms of actually trying to see what are some of the issues that actually need to be put into place. I can also remember very recently when we had a spill of accidents that have actually been happening, and he tried to come out very strongly and be in a position to actually say and pinpoint and also highlight some of the issues, some of the strategies that needs to be put into place to be able to ensure that we have the reduction of the accidents that we've actually been witnessing. We've also been in a position to also be able to see what he has actually been doing even in the air transport and so on and so forth. So I think, and he's actually been able to come out and also to be able to say what is it that he has been able to do, what is it that he's been able to accomplish as a Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport. And I think transport sector is a major industry. It's a major industry in the country. You can imagine the number of Kenyans that are traveling on a daily basis. So I think this is an area that, of course, we need somebody who is competitive enough, who knows really what is it that are the needs of this particular area, some of the needs of this particular ministry, and even the means and even the processes that needs to be put into place to ensure that maybe the loopholes that have been there are actually put into control. And
Eden Duale, I don't know why he's appearing among his peers here.
What is his score?
This is the biggest question. He is really experiencing a huge challenge regarding to the issue of quelling the surging of the banditry, not banditry, but the Al-Shabaab.
The terrorists.
Yes. In the northern corridor. And he has been very, very categorical by promising that these guys will no longer continue to destabilize our security in the northern corridor. I have no solid performance scorecard for Eden Duale, but I think he has also tried because our boundaries are stable. You know, the Somali boundaries. Sure. We have not had many cases in Somalia. You know, we are still having some soldiers there. I think the issue was managed. Yes. But I think comparing with the others, I think according to me, he is low below them. Yeah, we can actually, I can agree with you that by and large, we've had peace, we have calmness, at least the security, the threat from the terrorist group like Al-Shabaab, we can actually say the country has been able, save maybe for a few incidences here and there, like those, the terrorists who actually put some of these implosive devices along the roads that have actually led maybe to the death of some of our security personnel here and there, especially in those parts of the northeastern. However, Kagi, I remember there was this particular story of some teachers, TSC teachers, who have actually been posted in the northeastern, and they are on record as going to the Ministry of Education, I think to the TSC headquarters, and demanding that they actually get transferred from those particular regions because of the safety concerns. But TSC declined to actually take that particular decision. So I think there is more to do, even though maybe he has tried, but I think there is more to do so that there is the complete assurance, there is sufficient assurance that those who are actually working, we know there are quite a number of Kenyans who have actually found themselves maybe doing business, engaging in business. Some of them have actually been recruited. Some of them maybe have gotten job opportunities. They've been employed in the health sector, in the agricultural sector, maybe in the educational sector, and other sectors. And they're actually working in those regions, like maybe Garissa, Moyale, Mandera, Wajir, and so on, even Marsabit. So I think there is a major need to ensure that they have their security, because it's quite sad when you lose your life in a manner like that. People begin to regret even maybe why did they actually go and work from those particular sites. So in as much as maybe he has done quite a lot, I think he can actually even go a notch higher to be able to ensure that there is total security. Yes, and one of the things that was advanced, which is very good for the government, is when the parliament agreed to be able to invite the members of the cabinet to come to the National Assembly to respond to questions from the members of parliament. This was a very good move because it has given us an opportunity to be able to query some of the CSs. And I was asking myself, Mangicho, where did Mithika Linturi go? He is one of the CSs I was expected to be the forefront in terms of coming out, talking to farmers, and maybe trying to give them hope of their produce, the maize farmers, the coffee farmers, and the tea farmers. Even there's a group of farmers who are forgotten, Mangicho, the pastoralists. The pastoralists, exactly. We only hear them during drought, when they are losing hundreds and hundreds of their livestock. We need to see the Minister for Agriculture coming out with measures early enough to be able to caution them against any eventuality. For example, we are heading to what they are saying the El Nino era or maybe season, and it affects a lot of people, especially for the farmers. And therefore, Mithika Linturi, I don't know where he went, but sometimes I feel as if he is being overshadowed by Deputy President. Because Deputy President has really taken over the issue of agriculture. He is. I think he is shy away, or maybe, I don't know, but he is very quiet. And now, you know, we are receiving some harvests, some maize harvests. He has not told us how much we are going to sell our products. But anyway, some of the CSS have really worked hard. But the CS for health, Nakomicha, we need to see her more helping our level 5 hospitals to be able to get medicines, you know, to be able to open more facilities to be able to fight cancer, to help even the government to be able to source more doctors who can come and help our local doctors, things like that. And therefore, CSs are very key in helping the president to achieve his agenda. And you know, when he had a meeting in Nyeri, the way he warned them that it will be too unfortunate if the CS is less knowledgeable about his ministry as compared to the president himself. And therefore, let's wait and see how they are going to perform. And the other matter, Mangicho, we need to look at is the issue of cost of living.
Yes.
Yeah, the cost of living is very key in the performance of the current government. This was one of the major pillars for the election of the President, Dr. William Ruto. And Kenyans were very optimistic to see the cost of living has really gone down. And as we're speaking right now, there has been a lot of challenges regarding to the home products. For example, if you go to supermarket, you find that everything has really gone up. And people are asking, for how long are we going to wait for the cost of living to come down, right? And we hope after some time, because now we have received harvest, the cost of living is going to come down. And if it comes down, life is going to be much better for everybody, Mangicho.
Yeah, that is very true, Kagi. I agree with you. And just even before we pick on the issue of cost of living, Kagi, because actually that is one of the areas that we are actually even going to dwell in. But I agree with you that there is need, and I think there was that time that you remember when President Ruto had actually called all the cabinet secretaries, and he read a riot act on them, even arguing that some of them didn't have information, or he was actually saying that he had sufficient information or more information that the CSs on their areas of jurisdiction, on their areas of domain. And that is something that I think is very, very... I remember when they had a meeting in Nyeri, there was a meeting for there was actually a meeting for the cabinet secretaries, cabinet meeting, and then again in Kakamega, again there was another cabinet meeting.
Yes.
So I think the president is very, very keen on ensuring that the CSs are going to perform. And I actually bet those who are not going to perform, they might actually find themselves in a very, very tricky situation. With the several or with the frequent cabinet meetings, I think these are meetings that the president maybe is using to see what progress the CSs are actually making in terms of implementing
and his
the
progress is going.
agenda.
Yeah, and his progress is going to be determined by the way the CSs are operating. And I was trying to compare I think three presidents, how they manage their CSs. And if you look at the current president's way of managing his government, it's different from how Mwai Kibaki did. If you look at the CSs during late Kibaki's regime, the CSs were given full mandate to run their ministries. They had full mandate to make major decisions. And I was hearing one CS who said that he can recall only 3 times during their time with Kibaki. He called him in the office on some matters, and he was saying, I think it was Kirwa. You remember Kirwa?
Yeah.
Kipruto Kirwa?
Yeah, Kipruto
was
Kirwa.
agriculture CS.
Sure.
He was saying he can only remember, because it was his CS for, I think, for 10 years, he could only remember only 3 times being called by the president. And any other time as a cabinet, they are the ones who are looking for him.
Yes.
Maybe there's a situation they need his counsel, is the only time they could be able to meet. But any other time, they had all the freedom, they had all the mandate to be able to run their ministries. I don't want to say that the current regime doesn't give them the full mandate, but I feel there's a very huge difference between the two regimes when it comes to allowing the CSs to be able to operate. In Uhuru's regime, they're operating the same as the current regime, but when it comes to the Moi's regime, it was very different, whereby the president was very, very, very key in operating of the ministries.
Yes.
And you could hear that some people who are not even CSs, who are more powerful than CSs.
Sure.
You remember that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, Agi, we can now get our reporter, that is Vincent Kimtai. He always gets to interact with some of Kenyans on the topic that you are discussing. And of course, we also sent him out to be able to get some feedback from Kenyans on what they think about President William Ruto's government performance during this particular 1 year. We can get that particular interview right away.
Mangicho Mola na Paul Kagi. Leo ni tarehe 13 mwaka mmoja tangu Rais William Ruto alipoingia madarakani, na baada ya kuapishwa Rais William Ruto aliweza kutoa ahadi mingi, ikiwemo kuhakikisha kuboresha sekta ya afya humu nchini, ikiwemo kuimarisha sekta ya kilimo humu nchini, pamoja na kukabiliana na ufisadi. Na hivi hapa leo tutakuwa tukizungumza na Wakenya kutaka kubaini tangu kuapishwa, je, ni yapi ameweza kuafikia kuu zaidi, ambapo alikuwa ameahidi kupunguza gharama ya maisha. Je, haya yameweza kuafikiwa? Tutaweza kujua kutoka kwa Wakenya.
So my name is Zulfikar Osman. I'm a resident of Eldoret. Since our president came into office, there are so many good changes he has brought to the Kenyans. One thing is about security, that he has assured that there is security in all the corners of the country. Secondly, he is trying to stop what Kenya was going through, cartels. The example was in Mumia Sugar. So he doesn't want these cartels people to be involved. That everybody, a Kenyan, should have an opportunity to do his business his way. And he is also trying to streamline the IBC. And then also he's trying to talk to the opposition on how they can bring this country together.
So far, sijaona changes because corruption bado ni stress. A lot of people wana suffer through easy managerial, hawafanyi vile inafaa because wana steal from people. So unapata huyo customer ama the common wananchi hapati vile inafaa. In terms of health pia, unaenda hosi unapata maybe hakuna medicines zimeisha, na hiyo services zenye unapewa it's not enough.
Kusema ukweli amejaribu, kwa sababu kulikuwa na ukame wa pesa na chakula ilikuwa juu sana, na sasa tumeanza kuona matunda kwa sababu hata pesa ametuashiria na tumeanza kupata hiyo maruni. Kwa hivyo ningeomba angalie kama ni wafanya biashara wadogo pe nafasi, kama ni kuondokea magari kwa barabara waondoke, lakini wasifuguswe kwa sababu hiyo wanapata kauga na wasifanya wakola. Mimi nimeombea mazuri.
Saa kwanza ni kama si nchi iko na amani. Saa kama angetaka nchi ikose amani, si angeifuruga tu. Hiyo kwanza nikaona kuna kitu amefanya. Amejaribu sana watu wakuwe na amani. Tena kuna mambo ingine bado, hata kama mambo yenye alitupromise hajafanya, najua atatimiza yenye alikuwa amesema. Sasa hatuwezi mlaumu ama tumwekee lawama ati kwa sababu ati hajatimiza. Sasa mimi kwangu nashukuru kwa yale ameyatimiza, na yale hajatimiza najua atayatimiza. Na mimi kwangu
afike mashinani, aone maslahi ya common man, ajue hii hustler anasafa namna gani katika ground. Watu wake ambao wanafanya nao kazi kama mawaziri watoke nje, waone kilio cha wananchi, wasaidiane na wananchi na wajenge nchi yetu tukufu. Tunatarajia makubwa, manake ni 1 year peke yake. Naona anateremusha mbolea, ameanza kushikana na mambo ya miwa huko. Hiyo ndio mambo tunataka gusia sana, hasa wafanyi kazi. Aongee na azalishe kazi mingi sana, vijana wetu wapate kazi.
Kwa hii mwaka moja ya Ruto, mimi sijaona kitu ya maana sana amesema, sababu aliahidi, mimi kama mimi ni dereva wa taxi, aliahidi mafuta itarudi chini, mafuta bado iko juu. Aliahidi gharama ya maisha itarudi chini, bado iko juu, sukari iko juu. Hospitali kama yetu hapa, ukienda hospitali lazima utoe pesa, na kuna ugonjwa zingine unaambiwa kadi yako ya NHIF haiwezi kusimamia, na ni hospitali ya serikali. Na alikuwa amesema hatutakuwa tunalipa kitu kama mtu ako na kadi. So kwa hiyo mwaka moja sijaona kitu kubwa sana imefanya.
Unajua huyu mtu alikuja na promises mingi sana, makubwa, na alikuja akituambia ya kwamba wenye walikuwa failures. Si ni ukweli? So being that alikuja akituambia wale ni failures, we expected much in the first 100 days. Saa hii we are in 1 year. Si alisema ya kwamba akiingia tu hivi kwa kitu ya kwanza ni kusain unga irudi chini. Mafuta alisema itarudi chini, ilirudi. Sasa nitaamini aje tumepita 100 days, tuko kwa 1 year, bado ninapromisiwa ya kwamba itakuwa sawa mbele. Wewe kama wewe utaamini ya kwamba ni ukweli. So according to me, there is nothing that has happened and there is nothing which is going to happen.
Kama upande wa hospitali, sisi bado tunagaramika tu. Ukienda OC bado utaambiwa lipa 100 pale, ulipe ngapi pale ndio utoke. So tuliambiwa hospitali itakuwa ya bei nafuu, kila Mkenya atagharamika, lakini mtu wa chini kabisa mwenye hana uwezo bado anapata shida katika hospitali. Sasa gharama ya maisha imetufinya sana, hata tukingangana hata upate pesa ngapi baadaye, at the end of the day unapata uko zero.
Kuna shida upande ya job creation, sababu ukiona watu wengi hawana kazi. Kwa hivyo upande wa creation ya job, hiyo bado naona hapo haifanyiki vizuri.
Kwa hii mwaka mmoja hakuna kitu yoyote, hakuna kabisa. Kwanza hata ndio imeharibika. Mambo ya mbolea hiyo ni watu wa shamba. Mimi si mkulima. Mimi sekta yangu ni bodaboda. Labda nishukishie mafuta iko juu. So mimi hakuna kitu amenisaidia.
Mangicho Mola na Paul Kagi, hayo ni maoni ya Wakenya kuhusiana na uongozi wa Rais William Ruto mwaka mmoja tangu alipochaguliwa, ambapo tumeona wengi wanasema ya kwamba kuna mengi ambayo ameweza kuwafikia, lakini pia wanatoa wito rais akaweza kupatiwa muda ya kuweza kutimiza ahadi yote aliyoweza kutoka wa Kenya ya kuwafanyia maendeleo na kupunguza gharama ya maisha. Lakini tumeona pia Wakenya umeelezea haja ya serikali ya Rais William Ruto kushughulikia jinamizi la ufisadi humu nchini, ili na pia kuweza kubuni nafasi za ajira kwa ajili ya vijana. Kinachosubiriwa ni miaka 4 ambayo imesalia kuona ikiwa Rais William Ruto ataweza kutimiza ahadi yote aliyoweza kutoka kwa Wakenya. Nikiripotia kipindi cha Midmorning Park, MBCI TV, jina langu ni Vincent Kimutai.
Thank you so much, our reporter there. That is Vincent Kimutai, interacting with Kenyans and also getting some of the opinions, some of the perspectives on how the government has actually performed in this last 1 year. That is Ruto's government, the Kenya Kwanza government. And you have seen and you've also heard what Kenyans have actually said about the performance of the government in this last 1 year. And as we had promised you that we are going to have a guest also to help us look into this particular topic in details, and we are glad that our guest has already arrived in the studio. Is already on set. That is Wakili Kipkoech Ngetich. He's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and also a political analyst. Good to have you, Wakili. Karibu sana.
It's a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Mangicho, and talking to the viewers of MBCI.
Thank you so much, Wakili. And you're also happy that you found time today to be with us. And of course, Wakili, this is an issue that, of course, is making headlines across the country. Exactly 1 year, because on a date like this, the president and the deputy president was sworn into office. So we are looking at 1 year later on. We had the first 100 days, we had the first 6 months, but now we are exactly 1 year. Do you think this is sufficient time for us to rate this particular government?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mangicho, and viewers of MBCI. 365 days is sufficient time to give an analysis of the intention and the direction that the country is taking. 365 days is more than sufficient time to give an impression of what the government of Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the president, is doing. And I think the views of most Kenyans are fair. They are fair views in the sense that when the president was campaigning alongside the Kenya Kwanza Alliance Brigade, he made it very clear to Kenyans that the cost of living was going to come down. There would be change in terms of governance. That is, we're going to see a president who is going to lead from the front, a president who is going to ensure that every resource within the country is used to the benefit of the people and there would be no wastage. They also promised people that this would be a government under the rule of law, that this would be a government under the constitution. But I want to say that save for the subsidized fertilizer, which directly benefits farmers and indirectly benefits Kenyans, and change of guard, because change is as good as rest, sadly there is very little to take home from the leadership of His Excellency Dr. President William Samoei Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza Alliance Brigade. And I don't know whether he intends to change this, because as we talk today, the dollar is trading at 150 Kenya shillings to $1. When he took over, it was less than that. As we talk today, fuel prices continue to skyrocket, even despite the subsidy that has been slapped on fuel by the government of Kenya, certainly because of the Finance Act of 2023. So as it were today, the cost of living continues to skyrocket. Right. As we're talking today, there is no serious attempt on the side of the president to cut down wastage on public resources, because by this time I would have expected the President of the Republic of Kenya to summon constitutional commissions for a sit-down in the office to have a Marshall Plan on how we are going as a country to reduce wastage of resources. This is attributed to Dr. David Ndii, who has said that they inherited a very corrupt country, a country that was so rich in wastage, and sadly, his opinion was that probably they would live with the same wastage. President Uhuru Kenyatta, before he left, said that Kenya was losing 2 billion shillings on a daily basis. Sure. That comes to about 730 billion. Nobody has challenged the opinion of the president because it was well informed. So when you have a former president saying we lose about 730 billion shillings annually, and you have the chair of Economic Advisory Council of the presidency saying there is so much wastage in government, and he was not very sure whether the government was going to approve this, it tells you that as a country, we are not doing very well. That is not my problem. My problem is that I have not seen a Marshall Plan from the Kenya Kwanza Alliance administration on how the government of Kenya planned to trim wastage, or now the government of Kenya intended to reduce corruption by at least 50% in the next 4 years. That is why, as I'm saying, when you look at the cost of living, fuel, it continues to skyrocket. The cost of electricity, it is completely unfriendly. When you go to the supermarket, prices of basic commodities like sugar, like unga, they continue to go up. That is why I want to say in summary that save for the subsidized fertilizer, which has been delivered to most farmers, and the change in the people who govern, which is just that changing, replacing Mr. Mangicho for Mr. Kipkoech, there is very little that you can see in governance today. Thank you.
Thank you, Akili. And actually, you've highlighted some of the issues that we had actually been pointed as our area of discussion. And of course, Kagi, you can agree with me. The issue of cost of living, the issue of corruption, employment, and of course, political stability. Now, still on this particular, before Kagi also chip in, still on this issue, Wakili, of cost of living, because there is this narrative of let's have this short-term pain for long-term gain. And some of the Kenyans have actually bought in this particular narrative that the president and maybe even this particular government has actually pleaded with Kenyans that because they found this particular country in a very, very big mess, they made an appeal to the entire country that it is time for each and every Kenyan to understand that things had not actually been good, and we are going maybe to suffer for a particular short period of time. Then later on, the entire country can get an opportunity to actually bear or actually enjoy the fruits of what this particular government would have done. So 1 year is still short. Can we give them 1 or 2 more years for the country now to begin to enjoy?
Thank you. Of course, as I've already indicated, 365 days may not be sufficient for economic transformation. 365 days may not be sufficient for a radical shift in terms of governance. But you can use 365 days, which is 20% of his 5-year term, to gauge the compass this government is taking. You can tell the direction this government is taking. You can also tell in a big way the intentions of this government. But having said that, it still needs maybe one financial year, that is beginning July 2023 to June 2024, so that we now tell if he has different policies on how to change the economy of this country, if he has every other intention of changing and ensuring that the fight against corruption in Kenya is on a different traction. Otherwise, as I have said, for the 365 days, there is no Marshall Plan to fight corruption. We've just gone into recruitment of KDF recruits. And Mr. Mangicho, I would tell you this, that I've interacted with people who went there. And if you went to some constituencies in this country and you didn't have 900,000 shillings, you had no audience with anybody on recruitment of KDF. I expected the government of President William Samoei Ruto and with a powerful CS Duale to have a situation where Kenyans would go for recruitment and you would be recruited because you're competent on the basis of your papers and other necessary qualifications. Sadly, if you didn't have 900,000 in some counties, then nobody would want to see your face. I am saying I do not see any plan for difference. When you talk about telling Kenyans to be patient, I think Kenyans should be patient up to June 2024 because we are implementing the first budget of President William Samoei Ruto, so there is really need for patience. This is the first time he's come up with this budget. But when you look at this budget, which is deep in, which is wide and taller in matters of collection of revenue and taxes, we're talking about a budget of 3.6 trillion. This is the biggest budget we've ever had. I think that is a good intention. But the president is not telling us how he has sealed loopholes. How is the country going to stop economic hemorrhage that we've seen for the longest time possible? How are we going to stop 730 billion from being stolen from this 3.6 trillion shillings budget? That is what I would ask the president this morning. Mr. President, what plan do you have to stop corruption? What plans do you have to reduce pillage of public resources from public coffers? That is the question, that is the million-dollar question that most Kenyans would want to see. When you go to the roads today, police are collecting now with some element of courage. They are now very courageous in terms of collection of revenue on the road. I think if they were converted onto Kenya Revenue Authority, they would collect more than Kenya Revenue Authority. What are we doing as a country, Mr. Kagi, to reduce this level of collection of bribes by the police on our roads and all other government institutions? There are no differences in the Ministry of Lands. Today, if you want to do a search in Nakuru, it will take you 30 days. To do an official search of a parcel of land, if you facilitate, it will take you 2 weeks. What is the government doing to reduce these non-terrific bottlenecks that we have in the ease of doing business in this country?
That means that we are losing a lot of even revenue through maybe unrecognized loopholes. But Wakili, the issue of taxation. For the first time, we have seen Kenyans who are highly taxed. And where is the balance? Because my reasoning is, if the cost of living is high and then we are overtaxed, then there's no balance. If we are overtaxed, then the cost of living should go down. The reason why the cost of living and the commodities is high is because the government is looking for more money to facilitate its program. But if we are facilitating the government through taxes, do you see any balance between the cost of living and raising the taxes? And again, do you feel Kenyans are overtaxed, or maybe we have been living years of under taxation?
Thank you very much. When you talk about taxation, Mr. Kagi, we have official taxes and we have unofficial taxes. Official taxes would include the pay as you eat, that is what you pay as a salaried employee, pay as you earn under the Finance Act. We have the Income Tax Act, the income tax, we have the value added tax, we have the excise tax, the import tax, ad valorem tax, stamp duty. If you are acquiring a property, you have to pay that kind of tax. Those are the official taxes. But I think in this country, we pay more non-official taxes. If you meet a police person today on the road and you're driving a school van, he will tell you you don't have a PSV license. You do not have this kind of uniform. You do not have this kind of requirement. They always invent requirements. When you tell them, let us go to court, they tell you, bwana, hii maneno tumalizane hapa. You want to be given 500 shillings, 1,000 shillings. You go to the lands today. You want to do an official search at the Ministry of Lands, Nakuru.
Yes.
You would be told search is now 500 shillings. If you want to carry your search within 2 weeks or within a shorter time, you pay 1,000 shillings, 2,000 or more. If you do not pay, everybody would be extremely hostile to you.
Yeah.
If you want to carry your passport today, over and above what you pay the government and it's documented, you have to still facilitate these people at the immigration offices. So when we talk about taxation in this country, I think Kenyans are extremely overtaxed, not just by official taxes, but also unofficial taxes. I would have expected the government of the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, over and above overtaxing Kenyans officially, to also find a way of reducing these unofficial taxes. Kenyans are going down. The weight of corruption, the weight of unofficial tax in this country is too much. Having said that, even with all these taxes that we are talking about, the cost of living is on another level. Food prices continue to skyrocket. You go today to the supermarket and you want to purchase wheat flour. You want to purchase sugar. We are doing prices we've never done before as a country. Even sadder, even as we increase these taxes, we are not helping most Kenyans. So look, for example, the tea farmers. Tea prices per kilo for KTDA farmers remain at 18 to 20 shillings for the last 3 years, notwithstanding the fact that as a country, we have an economic meltdown, we have inflation going up, we are increasing taxes, food prices are going up. How comes we are not working to help production? Because initially we were told that the government was subsidizing production by giving fertilizer. What are we doing in the international market so that tea, coffee, milk, and all these other things that we produce as a country fetch better prices? We need to find a way of reducing the cost of production. This is what we are not doing. So I agree with you, Mr. Kagi, that we are not only overtaxed as a country, what we also produce is extremely expensive because of the cost of production. But what we do not produce remains very expensive. So you find a situation where it is very expensive to produce. That which you produce is taxed very extensively. But when you go to purchase what you do not produce, you find it extremely expensive. What I am saying is that Kenyans are caught economically between a rock and a hard place.
Yes, before we go to Mangicho, I think, Wakili, in a short summary, one of the reasons why, or in short, the government gets its revenue from taxes. Don't you feel that there is hope ahead, whereby if you are being overtaxed, then where we are heading to, things are going to get better for us? Like it was just reported here, that Kenyans are urged to accept short-term pain for long-term gain.
Thank you, Mr. Kag. As I have said, there is no problem absolutely in taxation. We can persevere. Kenyans can persevere for 1 year. My problem, and this is what most people are not addressing, we are not addressing hemorrhage of resources in this country. What is the cost of doing a road? I see roads being launched. This is most welcome. What is the cost of doing a modern highway, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers in Kenya compared to Ethiopia, compared to Uganda, compared to Tanzania? Because we are a country that budgets corruption. We start stealing resources from Kenyans from the point of doing budgeting. These are the issues that we needed to address. So as I have said, it is very good for Kenyans to support their economy. I support Kenyans building their economy by sweating it out, by toiling. What I do not support is a situation where Kenyans go out there, they toil, they break their sweat. Having done that, what they have given out through the sweat of their brows is stolen through budgeted corruption and through non-existent projects.
Right. Thank you.
Wakili, when you look at a scenario like the one that you are having, whereby the cost of living is becoming a major issue for majority of Kenyans, and most of the Kenyans cannot actually cope with this particular situation. And now this one also coupled with the problem of unemployment among millions of Kenyans. So what projections are we having as a country? What do you think, therefore, is the future, and actually even maybe the near future, if things are not actually put into place?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mangicho. The only way as a country we can prosper is, number one, to ensure that we are a country that is independent economically. And I think by taxing Kenyans in the manner the government of the day has proposed would probably have been a step in the right direction. That is number one. Number two, having collected so much tax from Kenyans, where Kenyans are breaking their backs, where Kenyans are sweating blood, where Kenyans are sweating profusely to support the government, we need to ensure that every resource is accounted. Every other shilling that Kenyans generate is accounted for to the last cent. I am not very sure that this is what we're doing. I would have expected that if Kenyans have produced, and they have, and they continue to do so, a government should be extremely frugal. We should not be wasting. I want you, Mr. Mangicho and Mr. Kagi, to look at how much we spend in international travel. I see governors in this country gallivanting the globe. I see senators and members of parliament crisscrossing the globe. I see the president also globetrotting. He's all over the world. How much are we spending in international travel? In this era where we can do virtual meetings, do we need governors to go and pose for photographs in the United States, pose for photographs in the Britain and say they are looking for markets for coffee, they are looking for markets for milk? I mean, we have the Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which can negotiate better. So I'm saying, number one, we need to minimize wastage and unnecessary international travel, which is consuming billions of money. MCAs in this country are gallivanting the globe. If they are not in Southeast Asia, they are in Europe. If they are not in Europe, they are in South America. They are everywhere. So my problem, number one, is that there is massive wastage on unnecessary expenditure. That is number one. Number two, we have budgeted corruption. And number three, we have not been able to minimize the cost of production. And while doing that, we add value to what we produce as a country. And I gave you an example of tea. Tea in Kenya is purchased by KTDA monthly at about Kenya shillings 18 to 20 for the last 3 or 4 years. The cost of fertilizer continues to go up, apart from the subsidized fertilizer. The person who plucks tea is paid Kenya shillings, 9 shillings per kilo. So if you are paid 18 shillings as a farmer, and the person who is plucking collects 9, you remain with 9. You have fertilizer to pay for, there is weeding to be done, whether you're doing it manually or you're using herbicides, you still have to do that. That tells you that the farmer gets less than the tea plucker. The cost of production is on another level. We needed to come up with technological ideas of value addition of what we produce in this country so that the cost of production not only goes down, but also what we produced, our output, can fetch better prices. And finally, as you've said, we need to think about how to expand the cake in this country. Instead of creating position of chief administrative secretaries for friends, for political bodies, I think the president needed to spend those billions of money, which would have gone to the chief administrative secretaries. Now the court has said they are unconstitutional officers. We needed to find a way of investing that money in ways where we could employ 1 million youth in this country. We have several graduates in this country who are now in sectors they are not supposed to be. A graduate should not be riding a border. Border is good business, but I'm saying there is no reason why you should study literature in the university. You read 1,000 books and then you come to fly a border. There are people who would probably be doing that. Okay. That is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Wakili. Now, Wakili, looking at that particular scenario and as you've rightly put it, is a situation that is very, very unfortunate, this rampant corruption, and now most of government, maybe officers, doing it with a lot of impunity. It's like they are no longer worried. It's like now someone would actually argue that the system has ratified or the system has actually legitimized it. But we have these independent institutions, Wakili. We have the EACC, we have the DCI. Is it that they no longer have what they require or what they need to actually get into this particular matter?
Thank you. When you talk about impunity, when you talk about corruption, these are problems which are not purely legal. Mr. Mangicho, corruption is also a cultural issue. Corruption is also a political issue. And Englishmen severally suggest that a fish starts rotting from the head. if you want to minimize corruption in this country, and I've done a research on Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, where Kenyans said 40% performance on matters of corruption comes from the judiciary. Kenyans were very optimistic, and they gave some good assessment that the judiciary has tried and gave it 40%. The presidency was given 20%. Parliament, constitutional commissions like EACC, like Ombudsman, Kenyans gave them 0 from the sample that I collected. What does that tell you? What it tells you is that Kenyans do not see much on the fight against corruption. And my proposal is this. Let the president do more than what he could do. I have heard him saying there are 3 things. That is what he said in Western Kenya, mambo ni matatu. That is what I want to hear from him on a daily basis on matters of corruption. Mambo matatu. Yes. Number 1, uende jela. Number 2, you leave the country, or you exit the stage. That is the conversation that the president should continue to engage Kenyans, and not just engage. I want to see it implemented. I would have expected by this time a Marshall Plan between the Office of the President and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We have Parliament, we have Judicial Service Commission, Constitutional Commissions, National Land Commission. That is the only way we can fight and reduce corruption in this country. And Kenyans also have a role to play. You know, in this country, if you have an election of a governor in this country, for example, you would find that Jim Nambaru, a successful industrialist, a successful businessman, is not elected. A person who's been in and out of court on various cases of integrity, leadership, corruption, and bribery is elected as a governor. That tells you that Kenyans also need to repent before the Lord. Kenyans need to reflect and ask themselves what kind of leaders they want. Because to the extent that you continue to elect a person involved in wash, to the extent that you continue to elect a person involved in shady business in this country, you should expect less. Okay. If you collect money from politicians so that you vote them in, then they would have to pay themselves. And that is why I would want to summarize and finish by saying Kenyans must also make an election today. Yes. On the kind of people they elect, because the people we elect are the people who are going to appoint cabinet secretaries, chief executive committee members, chief officers, principal secretaries, all the other people. And if we elected shady people to office, they will pick shady people to be accounting officers and to be in the management of various institutions of this country. Kenyans must take the lead in the fight against corruption, bribery, and want of leadership and integrity. Exactly. And because my director is telling me you have like 6 minutes, but there was this other issue that Wakili is also very important for us to also look into it, and we'd also want to get your perspectives on the same. That is the issue of political stability. Where is the fate, where is the future of the bipartisan talks by the National Dialogue Committee? Thank you, Mr. Mangicha and viewers. I do not know what is happening in the bipartisan talks which are happening in Parliament. But one thing that I would want to tell the President of the Republic of Kenya, one thing I would want to tell Baba Raila Amolo Odinga is that this country belongs to all of us. We do not have another country. The only way out of the obtaining political stalemate, it is not a legal problem, it's a political stalemate, requires a political solution. And I would repeat by saying, let the President, let Raila Amolo Odinga agree on the way forward. And for me, really, the most important thing that we need to address is, number 1, the issue of a free, fair, credible election as a country. We need to revisit IBC and give it operational, financial... Is that the same as auditing the elections? No. That's different. We do not have I do not see a way we can audit the election after going to the Supreme Court. We cannot audit this election in the manner suggested by Raila Amolo Odinga. The only way to audit is to give this institution financial autonomy, to give it operational autonomy. Let it plan for elections ahead of time and share information with Kenyans regularly. Number 2, we need to find ways of cutting down on corruption and ensuring that Kenyans across the board, every nook and cranny of this country gets a slice of the cake. every Kenyan needs to get a piece of the ugali that is in Nairobi. We need to take this ugali to Migori, to the couriers. We need to take it to Isholo. We need to take it to Lamu. We need to take this ugali all the way to Lodwar in Turkana.
Because Wakili, one of the questions that most Kenyans have been asking, even as we have these bipartisan talks, that maybe most people now by this particular time think that they've already maybe gotten the blessings of both President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga. But one question, is there an assurance that what will be discussed will be the interest of Kenyans, or we are basically looking for the selfish interest of some of these big boys?
Thank you very much. When politicians meet to talk, they do not discuss small matters of the small people. The big guns in this country would meet to share power. They might want to discuss one thing to appease the people, but what they are largely discussing is how power is going to be shared, how each one of them is going to go home with trinkets. And that is why I'm saying, much as I don't think the bipartisan talks would be necessary legally, I think for political stability of this country, it's good for us to address essence of free, fair, and credible elections, and also address the issue of cutting down on the cost of living and cutting down on corruption in this country by enhancing oversight of Parliament, oversight of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and necessary constitutional commissions and independent offices. That is what we need to do. We should make the bipartisan talks to be more about Kenyans. Much as I have said, when politicians sit down to talk, they speak about how to take care of themselves. They have to take care of themselves by all means.
Sure. That is Wakili Kipkoech, teacher. Thank you so much for having time to be with us today on this particular conversation on the Mid-Morning Park. We really appreciate your insights and contribution.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I would want to be back again, wishing all viewers a pleasant day and blessings as Kenyans and listeners. Thank you.
Exactly, and that is why we bring it to a close for today. We also want to appreciate you so much for having time to be with us, for joining us in this particular conversation. Of course, as we always say, it is important for you to follow up on what is happening in the country. This is where, by God's design, you found yourself to be. So you have to partake in the leadership and in the issues that are affecting us. On behalf of the entire crew that has also made this particular program a success for today, my name is Mangicho Mola. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Right, I want to thank you again for finding time to follow us on the Mid-Morning Park. Once again, Paul Kag here, wishing you a blessed day ahead.